let's move on. So the next speaker is coming from Sweden, and she's working at Spotify, and she will be talking about observability issues at Spotify. So please welcome Anastasia.
Hello everyone, it's a lot of light. I'm just trying to move outside so I can stand. I might very well disappoint the previous speaker because I'm going to speak about data observability and not the service observability, even it was the first thing which came to my mind when I was asked to speak there. It's just like observability, and of course the service comes into mind the first thing. So that's the agenda for the next 30 minutes. I'll try to go quick through it. So once again, who am I? I'm Anastasia, and I'm the engineer at Spotify. I work with data and backend systems, and I work mainly with GDPR and encryption and building infrastructure to that, but I'll talk more about that. Wait, I think this was the wrong side. So what do? Right, I'm part of the data infrastructure team. And my team owns one of the biggest Spotify services. We have around 1 million requests per second, and it's the service which gives out the encryption key. So whenever user logins or tries to access the playlist, it needs to encrypt the URL or encryptions of some personal data. So we have a very big service, but we also own one of the biggest pipelines for data pseudonymization. So whenever data comes in, nobody can access the raw data besides some service accounts, and we encrypt it or pseudonymize based on some set of rules. And yeah, so I could have spoken about this service, but I decided against it. One of the reasons is whenever we were trying to build it, we took Google's SRE book and we implemented everything according to it, and then we were happy with that. It basically works. Compared to the previous speaker, which I'm referring to you all the time, sorry, we own the service and we're on call for that ourselves. So it's the whole Spotify concept that we don't have a SRE team at all, and we own the shit we built. So if we don't have enough observability, well, it's our own problem. Another thing why I chose to speak about data. Well, the specific of our service is very read heavy. We read a lot and we don't write that much. So what happens, the worst thing which happens, we are down, we are missing a lot of read requests per second. Fine, the moment we are up and operational again, we are processing them back. It doesn't quite work the same way with data. Yep, so here is where the data coming from. So we have a lot of platforms like mobile, web, whatever. We have event delivery system, we have pseudonymization pipeline, and we store the data somewhere in the cloud. So we have around 8 million events per second we need to process in a batch manner. We are trying to build the streaming prototype, but it's still a prototype, we'll see, because the data loss is the concern, and it's very rare that you don't lose the data during streaming. So, just a bit of scale, it's 8 million events per second. The largest event hourly partition is about 8 billion events. And we have 500 terabytes of data per day we process. We have more than 100 unique event types published and defined. We used to own the largest Hadoop cluster in Europe, and we are very happy that we don't own it anymore. Wrong side again. So, how does it feel to be on call? So that's, as I said before, to be on call for the service, well, you misread the requests, fine, you're up and running again, and then you're getting them again. With data, it's not quite like that. Every time your infrastructure is down, your data just keeps piling up, and your downstreams to recover, the time just grows exponentially. And it's, during the incident, you always need to make a trade-off, how to recover and run it at the same time. You start running weird issues with quotas, with disk size, disk space, amount of workers, and whatnot, and you're trying to call Google in the middle of the night and say, can we have more of? So, this data, it's very big numbers, and who needs it? It's A/B tests, one thing. Another thing, developers put a lot of information to debug the product. And most important data is our business critical data, is amount of signups, because we're a public company now and we want to report it. And of course the royalties reporting, because every time you listen to a song we are paying to the artist. And they want to make sure that we really pay every time someone listens. Okay, that's not the latest version of my slides, but actually this has low connection to observability at all, but I just thought, I have been speaking to a lot of companies who runs big data, do some analysis, and we realized that, well, not everyone is using data annotations. So a lot of people parsing the data and basically we don't know what it is. So it has low relation to observability as it is, but in order to your data to be discoverable, in order to know what to join on, etc., just annotate your data, make it once, take the pain, and live with that. That was an example, nobody could read it, so I'll skip it. So monitor your pipelines. We have our own orchestration system for running the pipelines at that scale, and it reports the state, so it collects all the data automatically. It's no metrics you define or can skip. You know the execution and running time of your pipeline. You can alert every time, for example, your pipeline runtime increases like 10%, 1%, whatever, and it can actually point you to a lot of problems, not only with the size of your data and not only the skewness of your data, but also like, well, I'm doing something stupid, you're not optimizing your joins good enough, or something had changed. Another thing we do, like since I work with data pseudonymization, the worst thing which can happen to us is we produce corrupt data. It works like this. It's you join two data sets, the data sets you have and basically the keys, the encryption keys, right? Every time you can't find the key to join on, you encrypt your data with random key, which means the rubbish data, nobody can use it. Count your data. So basically we have counters on a lot of things, and we have a special service which implements the alerting on that. So every time you all of a sudden start giving random key for more than like 10%, well, throw an alert and look at that. Money. So data processing is super expensive, especially at this scale. So I pulled this data and I was wondering where is this cost comes from. 1/3 of the cost is data flow, it's basically processing of it. Another third is storage and query, BigQuery. And this is the real incident. I removed the dates, but basically here are the jobs, and on the y-axis is money, and on the x-axis is time. So basically we filter jobs which cost more than $100 per job run. And all of a sudden we saw that after a certain date, the amount of jobs, I'm shaking, the amount of jobs drastically increased. So a lot of more lines on the right side after the incident happened, and basically it nothing to do with us and no our code changes, but it's the changes on the cloud side. So Google started to do something different and we got that behavior. So it's always nice to have alerting on the cost of the pipelines. Another example of cost monitoring, like everyone knows download your data button, right? Everyone has it, like Google has it, Facebook has it, Twitter has it. So we actually monitor how much does it cost every time someone presses the download button, how much we do a paper request, how much every pipeline which contributes to the end result costs, and basically very interesting to know how many people do actually open it, because you get a link, and it's only 25% of people ever open whatever we send to them. Right, since storage is 1/3 of the, like 1/3 of the cost, would be nice to know how the data is used, right? Because you can use the cold storage, for example. It's basically the storage is cheap, but the access is expensive. Would be nice to know from which region is it accessed, because then you can really decrease your I/O costs significantly by just knowing that and optimizing for that. And then retention. Well, people love their data and they're so scared to remove it, they will never do. So just to set up a default retention of like, doesn't matter how many days, will save you cost. SLAs for partition. So we came up with this thing that we divide all our data into high priority, low priority, and medium priority buckets, and they have different SLAs for alerting on that. Basically, it helps like, first you don't wake up for every partition which is late during the night while being on call, and then you know the priority order how to recover if something is alerting. Also, we monitor our pipelines of failures. Here is just example, but I realize that it's very small. But basically, you can alert if your pipelines, like say, let's say, fails 2 times in a row. You don't need to wait 6 hours until partition is late. Or you can say, like, okay, if my pipeline runs for more than 2 hours, you can alert on that too. Because what we saw very often that sometimes they got stuck one way or another, and like Google does not give the resources back, for example. So it's like if it runs for more than 2 hours, then just let's alert, kill it manually, or do something with it. Dashboards, we love dashboards for pipeline too, it's not only services. So basically we also made a system which makes a dashboarding super simple, and it comes when you define your pipeline, so the dashboards appear and they come. And it's nice if you combine your upstreams and downstreams. So without going into logs from the dashboard, you can see, oh, it's failing because my upstream is failing. Right, we love this word BCD, business critical data. Whenever we are late with that, the whole company is screaming. So it gets high SLO, special treatment when recovering the data, and very special observability when it comes to the data loss. So one of the cornerstones, how to prove that your infrastructure is not losing any data. Right, so that's how the event delivery system works. You have some, we wrote some SDKs, like for iOS, for backend, for Android. There are some services and they're trying to meet their data to receiver service, which tries to put it to PubSub or any other messaging queue. And then we do the application and make our repartition, pseudonymize and make our repartitions available for everyone. So the idea is, how can we prove, since we're a public company, that we are not losing any data there? It's kind of, it's not trivial to solve, because like who is watching the watcher? Because we implemented the counting service. Every time the SDK attempts to send something to the receiver service, we just count an attempt, and we know for which event it is. Also, receiver service, it can reject the message only when it cannot parse it. So instead of just blindly rejecting it, we are wrapping it up in a proper event, and we are putting it in another PubSub rejected topic. And there is a streaming pipeline which watches it and alerts whenever something starts appearing there. And we have also a batch job which is called compare, which compares the counters after all kind of did application and everything versus what reported the counting service, and it gets we get an alert if it's something below 0.01%. That's the difference, and that's what we tolerate. But it is alerting, and it's kind of who is watching the watcher, because if this one is down, can we trust another one? Shall we re-implement the whole logic, and who knows where do we do it right or wrong? Or what if Google is down, like our Kubernetes is completely screwed, so what do we do then? I mean, then probably Spotify has a bigger problem to solve than the counters. So the bottom line is, like, it's kind of tricky to be part of infrastructure team because, well, you're not generating the direct value, like, right? Customer can see it, you're not a feature team, nobody will pay for your effort directly. So keeping your cost in mind is really, really good thing. That was it. If you have any questions, I think that was it about what I wanted to say.
Right, we got some questions for you. The first one comes from Hadoop fan. He says, what values were you expecting from Hadoop and why did it fail? And what do you use instead?
Yes, so Hadoop. Actually, we have an urn in the office where it says Hadoop on it. We ordered it and we made a pure proper funeral procedure for our Hadoop cluster. So the main idea is like data proc and everything to do with physical maintenance of the thing. It does not really scale with Hadoop, and it was more expensive at the end than to let someone to run it in the cloud compared to what it was before. There were other things because we started to remove it like a couple of years ago. I was not exactly in the team, but main pain was the scalability. It didn't scale out automatically. If you want to solve some problem, it's always like the trade-off of the money and effort. If you need to quickly solve something and just throw in some money, now it works with Hadoop. And to spin up additional nodes was always the pain. So that was
it. What do you use instead of Hadoop now?
We use data flow jobs in Google.
All right. What business KPI numbers are important for your service or in general for Spotify?
Business KPI?
Yes, business KPI numbers.
Well, if you are part of the deep backend, there is no direct business impact. So it's nothing to do with user signups or listening, but the business KPIs for Spotify in general, I think it's the number of users, paid, not paid. The advertisements, because we are paid, like it's advertisements is one of the business for the free users, and amount of songs listened per user because we are paying the royalties. None of it is reported by with the service which hands out the encryption. Good or bad, I don't know, but that's how it is. So no like business critical things.
Right. This is a long one. Do you make any business or architectural decision based on the data collected on GDPR costs? Or what do you collect it for?
Yeah, so we definitely yes. So for example, GDPR, there are many aspects to the GDPRs, right? For example, the right to be forgotten is the interesting one. So if I want to opt out from the service, that means what? That means someone needs to go and delete all my data everywhere. Like the architectural decision taken here was that instead of having like a batch job or a service, or like since it's microservices nowadays, it's kind of tricky to go and delete from every database. So what we did instead, if you are to be opt out, we just go and in one place we override your encryption key. So basically null them. It's null strings in the database. Your data is still around, nobody can use it. Right? So that was the architectural decision made by us because it's kind of cheaper to do it that way. Another example of GDPR 2 is, for example, when you press download your data, what probably there is some data which you are not interested in. Like, of course, you get all the main data, like your search history, your listening history, your all account details and everything, but kind of how much data and for how long back are you expecting to receive it forever and ever since you joined the service for 7 years? Will you really look into the 7 years of your listening history? So the decisions like that, you kind of, to collect this data costs, right? And there is like some kind of reasonable amount saying, okay, 25% of users even look into that. So what about if we give them like X amount of years or months back? And then basically that's it, and then we'll see if they come back and ask for more. There is, because the GDPR is very vague, and then there is a whole procedure people can follow if they want to.
All right, I think Ricardo was so fascinated by it, so he wants to ask a question.
Thanks. It was a nice talk. Actually, we started discussing before. So on the watcher problem. So to me, it really looks like a distributed transaction problem, because we want to ensure that whatever you, it doesn't matter, you just to, well, it really looks like a distributed transaction problem. You have a bunch of systems communicating through message systems, and you want to ensure that everything you write either is there or not completely. Like when it's not there, you know it. So, yeah, the question is, did you try to implement any sort of saga pattern to face comment approach that ensures that everything you write is there, or you just what you're trying to do is looks to me something like exactly one semantics in some stream processing solution. So did you try any distributed transaction approach or saga pattern across microservices, or any exactly one semantics?
Yes and no. We've tried some of it, but the reason is, like, at that rate, we don't need to know that everything we write. Because there is a lot of data we don't care about. You browsed on the app, we missed it, like, yeah, okay, bad luck, what can we do? Or you lost your, search history, bad user experience, that's about it. But there is more logic to that than just like lost or not lost, and in what circumstances. And it makes more complicated the things when, for example, the devices you can download and be offline, and then you go and report later on. So what do we do about that? The skewness of the data comes into the account. So with all of that, we decided to be as simple as possible. So that's one thing. Another idea, like the most things we're worried about is actually the duplication. And one of the source of duplicates is, for example, Google pops up, because they ensure that they deliver message at least once, right? But they deliver more than once in most cases. That's one thing. Another thing is retrials on the mobile devices. Sometimes they send more than once. So the duplication is the biggest part. And the idea there is like to make some kind of models and train it on it and test it on it extensively and make sure that, because that's theoretically the only place where we can throw it away intentionally. That answers your question.
All right, thank you, Anastasia. Give a big thank you for her.